you see the tread cam, you know it's Thunder. They're side by side down the backstretch.
But look at Stewart, he's sideways inside his teammate. Oh, he touches wheel.
Contact. Can he hold on over the line? Oh! Jack Hewitt has the lead, and now Hewitt is pulling away just a little bit from Frankie Kirk. Look at this. Cook may have a shot at him this time. He may try the slide job.
This is going to be it. Same exact thing. Let's see who wins.
Well, Lead King comes out of there with the lead, and yeah, he's got it.
And look at this. Bliss is on the outside of him. He's got a chance to win this race.
He's going to make a race out of it. They come down to the line. And they touch.
Oh, my gosh, they went through there side by side.
Hi everyone, I'm Bob Jenkins along with Larry Rice. The sprints, midgets, and Silver Crown cars don't have rear view mirrors, but that's what we call our program. And in the next hour, we'll review the 1996 Thunder Series on ESPN2 and take a look at some of the other races in the USAC divisions. Behind us, an incredible collection of old cars and race cars owned by Don Smith from Terre Haute, Indiana, who's been involved in racing in one way or another for over 40 years. And we'll take a closer look at some of these cars a little bit later in the program. But let's begin with the USAC Midget division. And Larry, it seems the champions from previous years have moved on.
They certainly have. Take Jeff Gordon. Everybody has heard of his success. Well, Tony Stewart and Stevie Reeves have both driven for Steve Lewis and have moved on to bigger and better things. This year, Kenny Irwin drove for Steve Lewis, and he hopes to do the same thing.
And as the series began, Irwin knew his toughest competitor out west would be Billy Boat. And the desert Southwest, Phoenix International Raceway is where it all began. Let's pick up the last lap of the Copper Classic as Irwin leads Boat into turn one.
Billy Boat's been trying to catch him the whole race. Going into this last lap, he knew he had to make some sort of a desperate move. So going down the back straightaway, he goes way high around the lap car, goes in on the outside of Irwin, tries to get through it. But just as they come off of this corner, they catch up with Birksey and Scully. They get in behind these lap cars and try to figure out a way to get around them. Irwin bumps the car in front of him a little bit, and Boat wins the race.
Great victory for Billy Boat on the mile at Phoenix, Arizona. Next to Ventura, California, and the Thunder Series begins. 3 cars dead even for second place.
I mean, look at this, 4 abreast going down through turn 4. Man, oh man.
They're side by side down the backstretch. Oh, great wheel-to-wheel racing. But now he slides right in with Troy Klein, and Leffler bumps Klein, momentarily loses his spot, and now he does as Corey Kruisman gets sideways.
And meanwhile, the gas man, Richard Griffin, goes by both of them.
So Billy Boat swept all 3 of our Thunder races at Ventura. One of the victories due to a penalty to Jimmy Sills when he jumped a restart.
Yes, he tried to live up to his 95 standard where he won almost every race in sight, but couldn't do that in 1996.
After our western swing, we came to our summer home in the Midwest, Indianapolis Raceway Park. Now, before we got there, Kenneth Nichols won an exciting race, inheriting the lead from Dan Dryden on the last lap. And then Nichols made it 2 in a row, winning the historic night before the Indy 500.
And speaking of the Indy 500, Tony Stewart, one of our Thunderheads, did really terrific there this year. Johnny Parsons also made the race, another one of our Thunderheads. A couple other guys, not so well. Billy Boat, Dan Dryden, Randy Tolsma, they all crashed, and Tice Carlson missed the race.
But we hope they'll be back at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in 1997. And we'll continue our look at the Skoll National Midget Division in just a moment. The night before the 500 midget race was staged for 13 years from 1946 to 58 at the 16th Street Speedway across from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Since 1969, it's been run at IRP. Welcome back to Thunder's Rear View Mirror as we take a look at some of the cars owned by Don Smith in Terre Haute, Indiana. And just down the road is a track that he used to promote, the Action Track. The USAC Midgets were there on June the 7th, and Tony Stewart was being welcomed back to the Midget Series after a tremendous month of May at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Yes, and it didn't take away from his dirt track ability running the Speedway as he caught on really quick. As we see here, Barth got upside down very hard early in the race. He wasn't hurt, but it was a tough flip.
Kenny Irwin did not finish in this one. However, because Kenneth Nichols didn't race, Irwin was the new points leader. Speaking of flips, here's Andy Pierce going over several times, but okay.
Yes, there were several crashes. Everybody got out of it okay, but believe me, Tony Stewart had things well in hand as he's led all of the last 136 laps here in the midgets at Terre Haute.
Incredible record for Tony Stewart. On the 15th of June, our cameras were in Richmond, Virginia, as Kenny Irwin had things pretty much his way in that race.
He certainly did. He really likes that racetrack. It showed all day long as he just mowed everybody away and won very, very easily, really.
That race was completed after the Silver Crown race. This is what happened before the Silver Crown race. A huge fire when Tracy Hines hit the fence out of turn 2.
Doug Coletta blew an oil line, leaving oil all over the racetrack. Everybody just scattered as they hit the oil. Hines hit the wall very hard. As he jumped out of the car, you can see him splashing in the fuel and fire on his feet as this fuel consumed the race car very quickly. A lot of fuel everywhere.
Absolutely incredible that no one was seriously injured. The fire totally destroying a $40,000 race car.
Yes, they can replace the race car. Luckily, though, all the drivers did get out.
Well, Tracy Hines was back just the next week, showing a little bit of burn on his nose, but nevertheless driving in the number 30 car, normally handled by Chuck Leary.
And the physical scars certainly didn't deter him any from driving the race car as hard as ever as he went into the lead and looked very, very strong all night long.
That's Doug Coletta running second there and trying to catch him, but he could not, and Tracy Hines went on for his very first USAC Midget feature win. The day before the 4th of July, the Midgets were back at Winchester, Indiana. And here's Coletta and Irwin passing our onboard camera of Carl Olson, and Irwin crashing.
Irwin got a little bit sideways, just got a little loose trying to get around that car. He went in and banged the wall. You can see that there was a lot of work to be done by Bob East to get this car back on the racetrack.
Another crash on the front stretch, this one involving Jeff Howerton and David Bridges, as Bridges' car does a Tommy tip over. No big deal there. And watch this, a perfectly executed 360 down the backstretch by Jimmy Mchugh.
Not exactly a skill. I think he'd tell you that was a lot of luck involved there. But I'll tell you what, this battle up front between Coletta and Hines was tough, but Coletta came home the winner.
On the 17th of July at Indianapolis Raceway Park, Dick St. John and Steve Barth touching a heat race, and another bad crash for Steve Barth.
He likes this racetrack, but he's had an awful lot of tough luck here and torn up a lot of race cars.
Start of the last chance race, Brian Gerster, one of several involved in a melee, also involving Jeff Howerton and Jeff Hunt. And speaking of Hunt, later in the race, he blew an engine, spun, and bumped the wall.
And man, you can see the oil coming out from under that thing as he went in that corner. Lucky not, he didn't hit it any harder than he did. And look at the tread cam. We got run over a lot that night.
We sure did. This is the feature on board with Tim Shutt. He and Jimmy Mchugh touch wheels, and Mchugh is into the wall.
You can see him back there just kind of riding along. Everybody missed him, but it was a tough break for young Mchugh.
Coming down to take the white flag. A lot of cars in front of the leader, Coletta.
And he's lucky he doesn't get in the middle of this, as two of the cars, Tim Shutt and Carl Olson, got together, but Coletta missed the melee. Those two guys weren't as fortunate.
Incredible onboard camera replay, Larry, here.
Take a look at this. You can see the Olson spins, comes right up in front of Shutt. The camera stays on. He goes over and back down, and luckily they were all okay, and he was not very happy, as you can tell.
After they got the debris cleaned up, they tried to restart the feature. Watch Andy Mishner in yellow try to take the lead from Doug Coletta.
He got down on the inside, just got loose, and spun out, went right up in the middle of all that traffic. Everybody missed him, but he's out and did not finish second where he should have.
That car owned by Larry Curry, and Kenny Irwin's crew wondered now if he could catch leader Doug Coletta. Well, let's see how things turned out. Off the fourth corner, Coletta leads Irwin across the line. Doug moved to third in points, 86 behind Kenny, as we go to Belleville Nationals, and the first time that event was sanctioned by the United States Auto Club.
And Billy Boat reaches into the bag and pulls out the #1 pill. That puts him starting first on the feature event. And believe me, that's a great place to start as he beats Kenny Irwin into the first turn. And look at everybody behind him running 3 abreast.
Great racing. Here's Irwin, Randy Roberts, and Tracy Hines moving through the corner. The 9th lap and the chance of a back-to-back victory for Billy Boat have ended.
And Jay Drake in that blue car down on the inside takes over the lead from Coons, and that's a teammate to Billy Boat, so this team still had a chance to come home with a victory.
Moving up through the field, however, Robbie Flock, and there you saw Tony Stewart with just 8 laps to go. Jay Drake bumped the fence, Robbie Flock got around, and he went on to take his 5th USAC National win, 38th Western States victory, but it's the first time that he had ever driven victory lane in the prestigious Belleville Nationals.
And I'll tell you what, this is a place he's always wanted to win. Every midget driver wants to win at the Belleville Nationals. He's done it. He's a very proud man.
He adds his name to the list of great drivers who have won at Belleville, including Jeff Gordon. Welcome back to Thunder's rearview mirror. Here's a look at the USAC National Midget Feature winners of all time. Mel Kenyon at the top of the list with 111. It was his night at Indianapolis Raceway Park on the 14th of August.
And I'll tell you what, at 65 years old, he's still going strong. He won a championship last year. And this is Tony Stewart, and it was his night here at Raceway Park. He won the Race of Champions and a big check to go along with it.
A check for a cool $10,000 is all. Then he took the checkered flag first in his heat race. He jumped into a mini cup car. He didn't win. Finished, I don't know, somebody's back 4th or 5th.
I'll tell you what, he runs anything, any place, anytime. He loves to race cars, and he showed it here tonight as he did a terrific job all night long.
The green flag comes out for the feature. Dan Drinan was leading into the pits, however, at the halfway point because of an oil leak.
He had a drain plug out of the rear end. They fixed it, and he went back on the racetrack. I'll tell you what, Tony Stewart took the checkered flag, and that's what counted.
Dan Drinan, however, was out for a bit of revenge when 2 weeks later they went to the high banks of Winchester, Indiana. He and Coletta battled for the feature win.
Doug Coletta once again. Oh, those guys running so close as they went through that bend. You got to trust a guy to run that close to him through the corner, because one slight little mistake and you're both in big trouble.
And we're talking 120 miles an hour.
We're definitely talking 120 miles an hour, and you're running. Oh man! That was even closer than inches. That was micro millimeters or whatever. Man, oh man. I just know they had to both get their hearts started right then.
Man, you bet. Well, Coletta pursued and finally got around Dan Drinan in turns 3 and 4.
Yes, the 3rd time's a charm, and he used that same move in 3 laps in a row. Finally pulled it off, and then pulled off into a 2 or 3 car length lead and went on to win the race.
Doug Coletta outstanding on the high banks of Winchester, Indiana in 1996. And for the first time in a long time, our cameras went to the Hut 100 at the Terre Haute Action Track, where it was a special night, at least for me.
It certainly was. It was your birthday, and everybody knew it. Look at that. We got posters, we got T-shirts, we got everything in honor of Bob's birthday.
And we got 33 cars starting the 44th annual Hut 100. Here we go. The green flag is out, and the Hut 100 is underway from Terre Haute.
Man, what a sight. 3 and 4 abreast, slipping and sliding, dipping and diving.
Robbie Flock and Jason Leffler leading Tony Stewart down the backstretch.
These guys battle hard the first part of the race. Stewart slowly works his way up towards the front as Steve Barth once again gets upside down. 2nd time in a row here at Terre Haute.
Steve was okay, however, it did bring out a red flag. Now we have Tony Stewart leading the race, his teammate Kenny Irwin right behind. This is not how to execute a slide job.
Certainly is not. As he slides up in front, they make contact. Neither one of them thought it was their fault, but I'll tell you what, it was a bad crash for Carter Bob East and Steve Lewis.
Well, Kenny, I know that's one you'd like to have back. Tell me what was going through your mind and how it turned out.
Well, Tony, I just kept gaining on him, and you know, it's just a bad deal. The 2 Beast cars were the fastest cars out there tonight, and I slid up and he was there. I don't know, you know. I guess it's. I don't know. I thought that, you know, when I slid up, he might be able to get back around me, or what the deal was. It's just a bad deal, and I'm sorry for Bob and I'm sorry for Tony, but I don't know.
What'd you guys say? You got out of the car, walked over to him, and you guys had a little private conversation. You want to share any of that with us, or is that none of our business?
I just told him, what I thought I was doing, and he, he thought that was the racing deal. So that's what we said.
Well, now up front, Randy Cook and Jason Leffler, and this is how Cook executed the slide job and made it stick.
Yes, he had a lot more room. See, he gave Leffler a lot more room down there. Leffler tried to come back under him. Everything went a lot nicer on that slide job, even though they were very, very similar.
By the way, Kenny Irwin shook that incident off and went on to take the pole for a truck race the next day in Richmond. Randy Cook has the lead here, but it didn't last for long as he pulled into the pits and dropped out of the race.
Meanwhile, Kevin Olson, running on the bottom of the racetrack in that white car, took over the lead. They call it the low slow groove way down on the inside. Jason Leffler actually running faster around the top, but Kevin Olson, using that low groove, came home the winner.
Kevin Olson wins one of the best dirt races we've seen in a long time in Terre Haute. Well, that concluded the races that we televised on Thunder. However, there were several more to go, culminating with the Turkey Night Grand Prix the night of Thanksgiving.
For the first time ever, it was held at Paris Speedway. Billy Bolt stole the show by having fast time and leading all 100 laps. His teammate, Jay Drake, ran second until he had a flat tire, but he won the Western States Championship anyway. Kenny Irwin, he ran third in this race, but he had already wrapped up the national championship.
Taking a look at the Western States final points, we see that Billy Boat finished second.
He certainly did, and had he not made the decision to go after some sprint car races early in the year, he might have had a chance to win that championship.
And in the national standings, I think a guy we have to keep our eye on next year is Tracy Hines.
Tracy Hines is going to be very tough. He never mounted a real serious challenge that second half of the season as hard as he tried.
That wraps up the USAC National Skull Midget Series. When we come back, we'll take a look at the Stoops Freightliner Sprint Car Division. Welcome back to our rear view mirror look at the ESPN2 Thunder Series for 1996. And Larry, as far as I'm concerned, this is the ultimate sprint car. This is the old Sterling Plumbing straight pipe offie, which was driven back in the 60s by great driver Jim Hurtubise.
I'll tell you what, a lot of us remember this beautiful race car, bright orange, throwing rooster tails. I'll tell you what, I can still see this race car running around the action track. And I'll tell you what, he pioneered one of the Chevrolet engines in this car, too.
And whenever I see the number 56, I still think of old Herc. Well, let's talk about the 1996 USAC Stoops Freightliner Sprint Car Series. We've already established that its 1995 champions Tony Stewart had departed for the Indy Racing League.
Jason McCord took over that ride. A lot of people thought that Doug Coletta would be the odds-on favorite, though, because he was a past champion, while others thought that Andy Michener, driving the 69 car for the Hoffmans, was going to be a real threat.
But in the early part of the season, a new name emerged as a contender, a young man from Tampa, Florida, named Dave Steele. The series all began on a cold night in Kansas, April the 12th. Lakeside Speedway, Jason McCord on the pole, Andy Michener alongside, starting back in 6th position, the fastest qualifier, Dave Steele.
And McCord got an early lead, as you saw Michener get all sideways on the cold tires there at the start. Steele quickly got up and got on the inside of Michener, moved into second place, and went hard after Jason McCord early in the race.
There's Brian Tyler, by the way, smoking his tires as he tries to pass Michener. And now Steele goes for the lead, trying to get to the inside of McCord in turn 1. He does it.
He pulls it off, gets way down on the bottom of the racetrack, almost in the grass, went on around McCord, and with that pass, went on to get around the lap cars and hang on for the victory.
And the series continued the very next night at I-70 Speedway. And on the front row for this race, Tim Cox and Eric Gordon with Coletta and Steele in the second row.
Yes, and Eric Gordon jumps off into the lead right away, but soon Michener takes the lead, and he's back there battling with Chet Phillip. Both those guys in heavy traffic. Phillip trying to find a way to get around him, but I'll tell you what, there just wasn't enough room for everybody on the racetrack as they split traffic, got a little sideways, up and over, and Michener gets out of the ballpark.
And some heavy damage also to the car driven by Chet Phillip. We asked Andy Michener about that wild ride.
We were getting in there, and I got a little bit sideways, and I believe he hit me from the rear end, and we were both going for the lead, and I don't think it really was his fault. It wasn't really my fault. It's just kind of one of them racing incidents, unfortunately.
No injury, obviously, but a nasty crash. Here is Eric Gordon leading Tyler, Steele, and Coletta to the checkered flag, and Eric Gordon wins one in Missouri. At Phoenix International Raceway on the 21st of April, the sprint cars had a hand in the Desert Star Classic that also featured the Trans Am cars and the Craftsman trucks.
This was the fastest open-wheel sprint car non-wing race ever, as they qualified at over 137 miles an hour.
Randy Tolsma leading Steele, Mchugh, Coletta.
Tolsma had a nice lead, but the handling went away right about now as we see Mchugh get down underneath him as they go into the dogleg. He has to lift a little bit, and Steele follows Mchugh right on through.
It's been quite a while since these sprint cars ran on this 1 mile D-shaped oval in Phoenix, but they put on a terrific show.
It's probably one of the best shows we've ever seen on a mile paved racetrack as Andy Mchugh wins his first ever sprint car race.
And he did it averaging more than 134 miles an hour. But there was your new points leader in the sprint car division, Dave Steele. And at this point, he decided to stick around and run the rest of the sprint car series. We'll check out this collection and speak with its owner when we come back. Welcome back to ESPN2's Thunder Rear View Mirror. You're looking at part of the collection of Don Smith, who was a promoter at the action track for many years in Terre Haute. Actually got started in racing by Tony Holman. Don Smith used to own the Sumar car, and he's a retired president of the First National Bank in Terre Haute. We asked him about how this beautiful collection got started, what his favorite car is.
Well, I guess Bobby Grimm's car, the black number 2, the Black Deuce as they call it, was the first one I became very much interested in, and Chuck Wyatt had it. And I chased it, and then he sold it, I think, to his nephew, and then I purchased it from his nephew and had Robbins from Brownsburg restored for me, and that led to what I have today.
Beautiful collection of cars. He's got 3 buildings full on his property. Well, after a Mchugh win at IRP in May, Brian Tyler was the new Stoops Freightliner points leader as we move to the action track on the 12th of May.
And Doug Coletta had something to say about who was going to lead this thing as he goes around Kevin Thomas with 4 laps to go and goes on to win his first ever USAC sprint car race on the dirt.
Here's Brian Tyler assessing the situation at Kokomo on June the 30th. He crashed during hot laps, couldn't get the car repaired, couldn't get another ride, and he lost the points lead to Doug Coletta. Dave Steele was not quick enough in qualifying, and he did not make the feature race.
Doug Coletta is the only one of the front runners who did make the feature. He went ahead to finish 10th, and hometown boy Tony Elliott went on to win the feature event.
The place where Coletta had success earlier bit him hard in qualifying July the 12th.
As he got up on the cushion, got the thing on 2 wheels, and went over very, very hard. The amazing thing is they fixed this race car. He came back to make the race and finished 19th.
A hard and terrible ride for Doug Coletta, but he's the points leader as we went to Indianapolis Raceway Park on July the 24th. We pick up the action early in the evening. Let's see what happens in the second heat race of the evening. Brian Hayden leads him down to the green flag, and it wins. Bill Rose with a quick advantage off the straightaway and into the corner as they line up 3 wide into 1.
Tice Carlson clear down on the bottom of the racetrack. He held on to that pretty good. I didn't think he could make that stick, but he did. But look at Tony Stewart. He took the high road, and the high road paid off.
Can you believe this guy? He's going to be leading at the end of lap number 1 from the back row. There it is. Tony Stewart leads. Another great night for Tony. He was back in the car that he won the championship in 1995, and he would join Chet Phillip for the 30-lap feature race on the front row. The field begins to accelerate, and looking for green. Green flag waves. Here we go.
Boy, they were getting really loose down there, and it looks like Brad Armstrong back there in that black car. He was really wiggling around, but he got that thing under control and kept everybody else behind him out of trouble. Look at the first 2 cars just running side by side.
That's a drag race into turn number 3. Phillip had it for a second. Tony Stewart battles back on the outside. Both loose coming off the corner. Oh, and Phillip has the lead by a half a car length at the end of lap 1.
I can't believe those guys ran side by side like that for a whole lap and never touched each other.
And this is not the place where you want to run out of brakes, and that's exactly what happened to Tony Stewart. You saw him hit the wall in turn number 2. He drove down into 4 and hit it again.
And that's pretty much going to end his evening, as twice into that fence with the right rear is plenty enough for him, as we see Doug Coletto also having problems and ending up in the infield with dirt and flat tires everywhere.
Now we jump on board with Jason McCord as he races with Brian Hayden just ahead. Hayden, more experience on the dirt, trying to make his name on pavement also this year.
You can see down on the inside, he's trying to make this pass, trying to give him a little bit of a slide job going down in there. Can't make it, hits the left rear, both of them hard into the wall. A lot of damage, no brakes, so he bangs him again.
The feature race resumes at Indianapolis Raceway Park, and it's Chet Phillip and Andy Michener hard at it down the backstretch.
These guys have gone at it before, but Michener this time seems to have the better handling race cars. Phillip's car just kept pushing and pushing as the race went on, and so Michener comes home with his 4th victory of the year.
And that is more victories than any other driver in the Stoops Freightliner Sprint Car Series in 1996. When we come back, we'll move to the fast half-mile dirt track, Eldora Speedway in Rossburg, Ohio. Welcome back to Thunder Rear View Mirror, and there is the owner and proprietor of Eldora Speedway, Earl Baltus, always has a hand in grooming this racetrack.
He certainly does. He loves to run that water truck, and here we see Jack Hewitt as he runs them high here at this racetrack. That's what he's famous for. A little too high right there as he makes a little contact, but it doesn't make him move down. He still hangs right around that cushion.
Even at this time in the evening, though, notice the cushion. It's going higher and higher just about every lap, and it would be a significant factor later on. Let's pick up the action in heat race number 1.
We see Stanbro down on the inside. He gets up, touches wheel with Cannons. Both of them up into the fence and roll down the racetrack. Neither one of them were hurt, but I'll tell you what, it was a spectacular crash.
The lineup for the feature has Dave Darland on the pole. Boy, I wouldn't want to pick a winner from this thing, I'll tell you. There are any number of drivers that have a chance of winning. They stack up pretty good here as Darland leads them down relatively slow. Now the pace increases. We're off and running, and Brian Tyler jumps out to the lead rather quickly. And Tyler continued to lengthen his lead for a while, but look at the white car closing in. That's Jack Hewitt, who was injured seriously in a crash here at Eldora. Several years ago, he began his pursuit of Brian.
But look at Frankie Kerr. He seems to find a good place down in the middle, too.
Down the backstretch. Tyler holds a lead, and now Hewitt gets him. Jack Hewitt has passed for the lead in turn number 3. Hewitt in first. Now let's watch to see if Frankie Kerr can take second from Brian Tyler. And Kerr is on the bottom. He does.
Frankie Kerr and Jack Hewitt both found a place on the racetrack that nobody thought would work tonight. Look at Frankie Kerr. He's down in the middle. He's going to give Hewitt a run for his money.
It looked like Jack could hold on, but it wasn't to be his night. And Hewitt is smoking and dropping out of the race. He's pulling in, and Frankie Kerr takes the lead. Oh, a tough break for Jack Hewitt, who is looking for his first win at Eldora since 1991, and it's over.
Jack Hewitt, what a terrible break as he just had.
Oh, we have a car in trouble, and Mark Casella has flipped down in turn 4. Mark Casella has flipped in turn 4. That brings out the red flag, and we are not through with the evening yet.
Well, Mark Casella is known to be a very brave race car driver. He runs this cushion as hard as anybody. He gets into the fence just a little bit down here in 3 and 4. Heading down the main straightaway once again. He's got some lap traffic in front of him. He's trying to get around. The lap car, Byron Reed, as he's right on his rear bumper, he's going to try to go down underneath him, going into turn 3, do a big slide jump up to the fence. He just misjudges too hard, hits the right rear on the wall, and over he goes. And it certainly was not a pleasant ride for Mark Casella.
But the onboard camera kept working, and Frankie Kerr, who came to us from the East Coast, picks up another victory at Eldora Speedway, and Dave Despain was there in victory lane to talk with the winner.
Congratulations, Frankie Kerr. That was a terrific run.
Well, we were trying really hard, and you know, I thought I was going to get Jack there in traffic, and then the yellow came out, and he wound up blowing up. So it was our race, and we needed this really bad.
Boy, it sure was fun televising a race from the Eldora Dirt in '96. By the way, USAC made an eastern swing during the year and ran at, among other places, the famous Williams Grove Speedway.
Yeah, and speaking of dirt, Mark Casella brought home Steve Stapp's 50th victory as a car owner at I-96 earlier this year. And Greg Staub, longtime supporter, he retired.
Let's take a look at the final point standings. There you see Brian Tyler, the champion, and he did it without winning a race.
Consistency was the key. He was very, very consistent all year long. His brother Bill did win a race at Winchester to kind of keep the family name alive. But I tell you what, Doug Coletta, try as he would, just couldn't pull it off.
When we come back, we're going to take a look at the USAC Silver Crown Series. Stay with us. To our rear view mirror look at the ESPN2 Thunder Series for 1996. And we move on to the Silver Crown Division. In back of the famous Black Deuce sprint car, we're on this old Silver Crown, or Champ car as it was called back then, raced in the 60s by, among other drivers, Johnny Rutherford.
And this was one of the first cars ever to sport the V8 engine underneath the hood.
And speaking of engines, USAC made a rule change in late 95 that impacted the Silver Crown Series in 96.
Certainly did. No more V6s. They dominated, so they said no more. This year you had to run a V8, either a Ford, a Chevrolet, or a Mopar. I don't think anybody expected the Mopar to be that strong.
And of course, the 95 champion, Tony Stewart, had moved on, and so the field was wide open as the series began in February at the Copper Classic in Phoenix International Raceway. These 4 races that make up the Copper Classic always attract a large crowd. This Silver Crown event was for 50 laps, and up front, Jimmy Sills and Kenny Irwin, and that would pretty much be the story of the Silver Crown division in 1996.
Yeah, Sills jumps out into a big lead. Kenny Irwin right behind him, but Mike Bliss, who is already into 4th, started way back in 12th, while Tosma in the black 6 car is in 3rd spot.
And there is Kenny Irwin going to the inside and taking the lead from Jimmy Sills. Later, Sills would drop out with mechanical problems.
Yeah, he lost his brakes, and without brakes, you can't run a place like this. As Kenny Irwin tries to get around the inside and Mike Bliss, but Bliss hangs on and pulls away coming off of turn 2.
Mike Bliss in the black and pink number 69 takes the checkered flag and wins the Copper Classic. Now at Indianapolis Raceway Park on May the 18th, the Silver Crown division had Robbie Flock and Dave Blaney up front.
These two guys both known to be dirt car drivers, dirt track drivers, and both driving Ford-powered machines. Nobody thought they were going to be up front in this race, but they showed the way early on.
Dave Blaney, of course, a regular on the World of Outlaw Sprint Car Series. Here's Kevin Doty with an on-board camera driving the Nibel car. Up front, Keeker and Bliss.
You can see that Bliss and Keeker trading that spot. Doty also known for his dirt track prowess, keeping right up with those two pavement specialists.
Now Dave Blaney gets caught up in traffic as he tries to take the lead from Robbie Flock. Blaney and Flock are side by side down into corner number 1. They are 3 abreast through there.
3 abreast. Flock went up and gave Chip Thomas a little bit of a love tap there down there in 3, but he didn't move over. He didn't give him any room. And now then Blaney's going to try to go to the bottom.
Blaney's got the good groove here because I think he's going to come off a little bit low by this lap car. Robbie might be in trouble right here.
Yeah, Flock is hung up behind the slower car, but now Thomas moves to the low side and still is right in the way. Now it is Blaney that clearly takes the lead. Among those being lapped there is Sammy Swindell in number 6, but Blaney comes out of all this with the lead. Back on board with Kevin Doty. Up front, Mike Bliss and Bill Bowie make contact.
They run very, very close together, just touch bumpers, and you can see that both of them almost lost control, and meanwhile Doty catches back up with them.
Here's Dave Blaney bumping Johnny Heidenreich. The front end is broken. He slides into the backstretch wall. A lot of damage. He's okay.
Meanwhile, the battle up front is hot and heavy as Kenny Irwin leads Dave Blaney, and Bliss tries to get around Flock, runs over his left rear. Doesn't seem to be any damage. Both continue.
But Robbie would drop out of the race a few laps later with a problem unrelated to the incident with Bliss. Kenny Irwin leads, but Bliss is catching him on the white flag lap.
Well, Bliss is catching him. Bliss has caught up a half a straightaway in the last 2 or 3 laps.
He's catching him, but I think he's going to run out of time. You know, this traffic's really holding up Kenny, but I think I think Mike's going to run out of time.
There's the white flag. One more lap to go. The 7 car ahead of Kenny Irwin is Johnny Parsons. Let's see what Irwin does here on the last lap. If he's going to be content to just stay where he is. Oh, a car
Gurney got all sideways or got something happen up there. He slowed way down, and look at this. Bliss is on the outside of him. He's got a chance to win this race.
He's going to make a race out of it. They come down to the line. And they touch.
Oh my gosh, they went through there side by side.
I think Bliss won.
When did you realize you had a real shot at him?
About the start-finish line. I saw he got hung there in traffic, so I just drove right down the bottom and just gassed it. And I mean, it felt like dirt, which I'm not no good at anyway. But it was fun over the line. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just thought we were going to get in a big wreck, but I wasn't going to lift till we quit.
Larry, it was one of the most exciting finishes we had all year.
It certainly was, no question about it. Half a tire length is all he won by.
They came together right at the line, and Dave Despain was there to get Kenny's reaction when we showed him this finish on a monitor down in the pit area.
Golly, look at that.
Yeah, there it is. I don't think he liked it.
Well, maybe if these cars had rear view mirrors, the outcome would have been a little bit different.
You're right, because until the last second, he had no idea he was there.
It's ESPN2's rear view mirror as we look back on the Thunder Series for 1996. But first, let's go back to 1995 as the USAC Silver Crown cars appeared at Richmond International Raceway, the 3/4 mile track, for the very first time at a great race. Here's Jack Hewitt and Randy Tolsma going at it.
Tolsma tried to get under him on the last corner of the last lap. Hewitt chopped him off and went on down to take the victory flag. And boy, I tell you what, it was a well-deserved win.
You really don't think of Jack Hewitt being proficient on the pavement, but he's good anywhere.
He certainly is, and he really did a great job there. He ran a race car a little sideways sometimes, but he won the race.
We came back to the beautiful city of Richmond in 1996 on the evening of June the 15th. The drivers' meeting, there's Jim Keeker and Bentley Warren, listening to the instructions of Raleigh Beal, a former sprint car champion who was in this position for the last time in 1996.
Yes, he retired. He's well respected in this sport. Everybody hates to see him go, but we'll go on for next year.
Randy Tolsma, the fastest qualifier again at Richmond. However, he drops back immediately as Dave Steele takes the lead with Stewart and Irwin second and third.
Yeah, Steele got a terrific start. Tolsma got a terrible start. And Steele let everybody know right away that he was pretty proficient.
Randy Tolsma was an early DNF, and so was Jim Keeker. Meanwhile, the leader was Dave Steele. This is a very unusual sight right here. Number 69 being lapped during a Silver Crown pavement race. That just doesn't happen. But David Steele is making it happen here tonight. Hasn't gotten the pass pulled off yet, but is very close to doing so. So Mike Bliss moved up quickly from his starting position, but then kind of stalled and now goes a lap down to the field. Both the leader, David Steele, and now here comes second place, Kenny Irwin, are putting him a lap down. Meanwhile, the defending champion of the event, Jack Hewitt, was also not having a good night.
Yes, he just never got off the mark. Did not handle any place near what he did last year. Struggled all night long. But back up front, what a terrific battle for the lead.
Yes, indeed, as Kenny Irwin has passed Dave Steele for the lead, but the man on the move is Jimmy Sills in the Mopar-powered car.
And all this traffic has given everybody a lot of trouble. Here he gets underneath Steele. Steele chops him off as Gary Stanton won't even look out on the racetrack. He's so nervous.
Well, I hope he's looking now, because here is Jimmy Sills taking the lead from Kenny Irwin.
Down on the inside, help using that lap traffic. That's Burke in front of him. He's going to use him kind of as a pick. Burke runs him clear down into the flat part of the racetrack. You can see him there, the left wheel's on the flat part, but he just kind of moved him over and went on around and went on to take the checkered flag.
Another win for the driver from California, who's a former champion of the Silver Crown division, and Dave Despain was in victory lane to talk with him.
We've had a lot of bad luck, and this Mopar has been running great. A lot of people blame our bad luck on the motor, but this thing has hit good from day one. We never have to take the hood off and work on it. I mean, this thing makes good power. I can't say enough about the Mopar, but
talk about the strategy a little bit.
Well, we went with a little harder tire than the other guys had on, and we were a little worried because we didn't qualify We qualified for 6th, but it worked out good for us.
The series moves to Indianapolis Raceway Park, part of the Brickyard 400 weekend. Here's the ageless Crocky Wright on his motorcycle blasting through the wall of flame.
And the question is, can Mike Bliss come from his 11th starting position to win his 2nd race in a row here at this racetrack? It's 100 laps long, but with Kenny Irwin and Jimmy Sills starting in the front row, it's going to be a very difficult task.
Here we go, the DuPont 100 underway from Indianapolis Raceway Park.
Oh, and Jimmy Sills got real squirrely going down that main straightaway. He was doing tank slappers all the way down there, but got it under control, and it could have been real bad if he had got just a little bit more sideways. In front of the field, we got a big crash back here coming off the 2.
It was a huge crash, as a matter of fact. The guy that got the worst end of the deal was Bill Rose, who hit the inside wall and then was rear-ended by another car. Let's take a look at it again.
Yes, I think Jack Hewitt and Gary Irwin got together coming off. Irwin is the black car sliding sideways down the middle of the racetrack. Everybody else just scattering, trying to miss. And poor old Billy Rose got down the inside, banged that wall very, very hard.
And Dave Despain was right there to talk with him.
Bill Rose doing pretty well for a guy who took the lick that he just took. You've all had a chance to see it. He hasn't had a chance to see it yet. Do you want to see that?
I don't know. It feels like my neck's about 2 foot long after hitting that.
Well, yes, they say it's the sudden stop that hurts. Where do you hurt the worst?
Just my neck's a little stiff. That's all. I just kind of got the wind knocked out of me.
Did you see it coming? I mean, did you know what you were going to hit? Did you get time to hunker down at all, or did it happen too fast?
Yeah, I seen it come. Actually, I tried to turn to get on the inside of the wall, but as soon as I got in the grass, it was just a straight shot right to it. I'm not sure. The 87 car got crossed up, I think, what I seen, and then I started down below him, and I don't know if anybody hit me or what, but all of a sudden it just straight to the wall.
But you're okay. Did you ever take a harder lick than that?
Not head on like that, I haven't.
And look at the damaged race car and that huge chunk of cement that was broken right in half by the impact.
Those pieces of cement are 3,500 pounds, and it broke.
Kenny Irwin has a lead, in fact, a huge lead over the number 75 car of Jimmy Sills late in the race.
Jimmy Sills had a lot of horsepower and was handling pretty good. He can handle the lap traffic very well, but he just couldn't catch up with Kenny Irwin unless Kenny Irwin had something go wrong or made a mistake like he did last time. Look at all the lap traffic that he's got in front of him. Whoa, what does he do now?
He doesn't want to make a mistake.
Oh, that's why I say that. It gets all sideways.
Goodness, trying to get around Paul Durant. The car completely sideways in the second corner is not going to hurt his chances of winning, though. He's still going to pull off the victory, but man, oh man, what a chance he took there on the last lap. Here he comes off the corner. Kenny Irwin Jr. wins the DuPont 100. Jimmy Sills comes around and finishes in second position. So Kenny Irwin had the points lead in the Silver Crown division as the series headed for the traditional mile racetracks. Back in a moment. With that race at IRP, Irwin had a rather commanding 218-point lead over Jimmy Sills in the championship, with the traditional 1-mile dirt track races coming up. Now the question was, could he hold on for the title?
Well, with that victory, he became the only driver to win in all 3 of USAC's divisions this year. And to do that, you got to be pretty tough everywhere. He is no longer a pavement-only driver. He's pretty tough on the dirt, too.
Let's take a glance in the rearview mirror at the DuQuoin, Illinois State Fairgrounds. It was on the 2nd of September, and Jack Hewitt took the lead from the pole position. But watch Tracy Hines here in the 30 car make a nice save up into the cush, but continuing.
He certainly did. Kenny Irwin wasn't nearly as lucky as he got over the wheel. John Hyden right there got upside down and ended his day very quickly.
Chuck Gurney took the checkered flag. 3rd victory here and 2nd in the last 3 years. We move to Sacramento on the 12th of October. Again, it's Sills leading Dave Darlin and Kenny Irwin as the fireworks go off.
And here are some fireworks as Sills leading the race, runs into a lap car and puts himself out of the race and into the fence.
With just 6 laps to go, watch the red number 67, driven by Donnie Beechler, go to the inside and pass Irwin. And Donnie Beechler goes on to the checkered flag. Kenny Irwin now has a 138-point lead going into the finale at Del Mar, California on the 20th of October.
And all he has to do is finish 6th or better in this race if Jimmy Sills wins, and he still wins the points championship. Sills made no mistake about it. He jumped out into the lead and never looked back.
In fact, after 5 laps, his lead was more than a full straightaway. The last caution of the day brought out when Hewitt and Ronnie Burke got locked together. On the restart, look at Irwin go to the inside and pass Brent Kading. He's now up to 4th. The title seems in hand.
It certainly does, as Jimmy Sills does his part and he wins the race. All Irwin has to do is hang on to 4th, but he's got a flat right rear tire. He's trying to hang on. He and Ryan Newman make contact. It puts him into the fence and ends his hopes. Tough break.
Sills wins the race and the championship. The final margin of victory, 42 points. Chuck Gurney was 3rd. 4th was Dave Darlin, and Robbie Flock 5th in the Silver Crown division. Boy, that's a tough way to lose a championship. Last lap, last race of the year. Did you ever lose one that way?
No, I certainly didn't, but I tell you what, it has to be heartbreaking for a guy like Kenny Irwin. Jimmy Sills, on the other hand, he's thrilled. I won a couple on the last race of the year, and believe me, it's great.
How about an overall assessment of the USAC season in '96?
Well, it was very thrilling, very unpredictable, because who would have ever thought you could win the Silver Crown Championship in a Dodge-powered car? Who would have ever thought you could win the Sprint Car Championship without ever winning a race? The midgets, on the other hand, pretty predictable. Steve Lewis's car won with Kenny Irwin.
There were some passings in 1996 that we would like to take note of. A couple of car owners and one builder. Dick Hammond, Boston Louis Seymour, and Eddie Kuzma.
We're going to miss all those guys, but we want to thank Don Smith for allowing us to come down here and look at all these beautiful race cars in his palace.
Thanks for joining us on this rearview mirror look at the Thunder Series for 1996 on ESPN2 and the USAC Sprint, Midget, and Silver Crown divisions. For Larry Rice, I'm Bob Jenkins. So long, everyone. And now Boat goes to the top. Here they come off the 4th corner. Boat takes the lead momentarily. Yes, he's got it. He's going to make a race out of it. They come down to the line. And they touch.
Oh my gosh, they went through there side by side.
I think Bliss won.
Whoa, big time.
Oh, and a bad
upside down.
And a big fire. Jimmy Sills wins the Silver Crown race here at Richmond.